Hello, and welcome to Transformation by Truth podcast, where the called become the chosen, and those who have been dedicated to serve the Most High receive the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, as we progress our quest for holiness, perfection, and everlasting life. My name is D.L. Anderson. I'll be your tour guide. Let's get started with today's lesson. Hello, my friends. D.L. Anderson here. Welcome back to Transformation by Truth podcast and the quest for holiness, perfection, and everlasting life 2022, week 6. Now, today's podcast will continue with the redemption series. 2 weeks to examine the process by which we are saved. Today's podcast is also Lecture G, a word of truth accounting of the redemption process, day 8. The title of today's podcast is Holiness, Traditions, and Truth. Beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit after the tradition of men. Colossians 2:8. The Lecture G objectives are: revisit the danger in following man's traditions, reveal what defiles a man, discuss the role of truth in our podcast, and restate my promise to always share with you the word of truth. If you're in our virtual book club, this lecture references Chapter 3 of the Pinnacle of Holiness, Volume 1, Holiness is the Main Thing. Now, this lecture also references Chapter 13 of the Pinnacle of Holiness, Volume 2, Truth, Beliefs, and Traditions. Our first section is entitled, Beware the Traditions of Man. As I mentioned in yesterday's podcast, today's lecture will focus on continuing the discussion between holiness, traditions, and truth. This is critical because holiness is the completion of redemption. For that reason, the enemy works tirelessly to prevent us from becoming holy. For if we do not become holy, we will not be sanctified. And if we are not sanctified, we will not be saved. Now, the primary deception he employs to mislead on this wise are traditions, but not just any traditions, traditions of man. Let's talk about it. Traditions of man are physical standards or customs that are believed to have divine authority, although they are not validated by the word of truth. Despite this fact, many observe these traditions and believe their adherence will have some bearing on their eternal future. Now, the problem with man's traditions is found in the definition. That is, they cannot be validated by the word of truth, for they do not come from Elohim. Here lies the problem, namely, if the tradition is not from Elohim, it cannot make you holy. At best, it would make you equal to the author of the tradition. This, my friends, is extremely problematic, for in this scenario, Yahushua Messiah is no longer the example. He is no longer the standard. The standard now is the man who has unlawfully created the tradition without divine authority and yet passed them down to others to be observed, under the premise that they cannot be saved apart from adherence. See, this is the part the enemy does not want you to consider. And this is precisely what I use an iceberg to illustrate this fault. It's because man's traditions on the surface do not appear to be harmful. They may even appear to be good. That's what the enemy is betting on. He is betting that you are going to focus on the trivial goodness of the tradition and completely ignore what's underneath the surface. That is your irreligious elevation of man above your creator and the curse that comes with it. He touched on this curse and the wrath of Elohim that comes with it when men began putting more faith and credence in the words of man. It's a fool's errand, for man, even at his best state, is nothing to be accounted for. Isaiah 2:17-22 reveals, the loftiness of man shall be bowed down, and the pride of men shall be brought low. And Yahuwah alone shall be exalted in that day. Cease from man, whose breath is in his nostrils, for wherein is he to be accounted of? Let's now discuss what defiles a man. Here's a question. Is there a scriptural example of the danger in adhering to the traditions of man? The answer, there are many, and I will analyze a prominent discourse between Yahushua Messiah and the religious leaders of his day. Mark 7:1-2 is reading, and the Pharisees and some of the scribes assembled to him, having come from Jerusalem, and seeing some of his taught ones eat bread with defiled, that is, with unwashed hands, they found fault. For the Pharisees and all the Yehudim do not eat unless they wash their hands thoroughly, holding fast the tradition of the elders, and coming from the marketplace, they do not eat unless they wash. And there are many other traditions which they have received and hold fast. Then the Pharisees and scribes asked him, why do your taught ones not walk according to the tradition of the elders, but eat bread with unwashed hands? And he answering said to them, well did Isaiah prophesy concerning you hypocrites, as it has been written, this people respect me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. And in vain they worship me, teaching as teachings the commands of men, forsaking the command of Elohim, you hold fast the tradition of men. And he said to them, well, do you set aside the command of Elohim in order to guard your tradition? In calling the crowd to him, he said to them, hear me, everyone, and understand. There is no matter that enters a man from outside, which is able to defile him, but it is what comes out of him that defiles the man. For from within, out of the heart of men proceed evil reasonings, adulteries, whorings, murders, thefts, greedy desires, wickedness, deceit, indecency, an evil eye, blasphemy, pride, foolishness. All these wicked matters come from within, and they defile a man. If anyone has ears to hear, let him hear. Unfortunately, I have witnessed this scene for a good portion of my life. That is, men and women in the church circuit who are so focused on physical standards that they are oblivious to the wanting spiritual condition of their souls. This is especially the case for many holiness churches, for these place a greater emphasis on physical standards than they do on spiritual standards. Likewise, they are unable to draw a direct connection between their physical standards and the word of truth. This is precisely why you will find many in the holiness movement observing multiple strict codes of conduct and dress, some of the strictest codes you'll ever find in our world. Yet, despite their adherence to these strict codes, their spiritual lives are often no better nor different than anyone else in the religious circuit. And often, they're no better than those in the world. This is because physical standards do not transform us. Physical standards have no impact on the spiritual state of our mind, our heart, or our will. This is why those who are overfixated on physical standards are often no better than those in the world. Their degrees of spiritual transformation are similar, if not the same. This is all and only because they are more focused on how they look on the outside than they are on the internal transformation required for them to be holy. Here again, we find this is not a new deception. The enemy has been deploying it for thousands of years. Matthew 23:25 reads, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, because you clean the outside of the cup and dish, but inside they are filled with plunder and unrighteousness." Blind Pharisee, first clean the inside of the cup and dish, so that the outside of them becomes clean too. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, because you are like whitewashed tombs, which outwardly indeed look well, but inside are filled with dead men's bones and all uncleanness. So you too outwardly indeed appear righteous to men, but inside you are filled with hypocrisy and lawlessness. Let's now discuss a no tradition zone. Now, the sum of these matters are at the foundation of our ministry and this podcast. There is a reason why this podcast is not called Transformation by Traditions. And there is a reason why you will never find me sharing anything but the word of truth. From the beginning until now, and as long as we have breath, our focus has been and will be truth. Any standards, customs, or practices that could accurately be classified as tradition will always be aligned with the guidelines passed down to us by Elohim that we have been commanded to guard. These are the only traditions that can accurately be classified as truth. The primary traditions on this wise you have seen from our ministry are the 7 pillars of our faith. And I proved a direct correlation between these 7 pillars and the word of truth during the feature week. For your edification, I would suggest reviewing that week every now and then, for they are the foundation of our faith. And those 7 pillars are effectual prayer, effectual fasting, spiritual focus, dominion, authority, power, and dedication. Remember this, the easiest way to make your way harder as you advance your quest and pursue holiness is by adding to or subtracting from the word of truth. Thus, I admonish you to always keep it simple. Do what you're told by the Spirit and stand fast on the word of truth and only those traditions that can be validated as truth. Now, here is the final word. Hold fast the truth of Elohim, for it is a lamp unto your feet and a light unto your path. Holiness is the completion of redemption. For this cause, our enemies have set up countless snares alongside the way of holiness, and they have unleashed countless anti-Messianic spirits to draw men and women off this path and into the snares all along the way. Some of the most deceptive exit ramps off the way of holiness and into these snares are decorated with the traditions of men. Thus, I will warn you one final time. Stay in the way of holiness and follow the word of truth we are sharing. This is the only way you will be redeemed and obtain the prize you seek. Now, here is today's assignment. Examine your spiritual life and make sure all traditions you are following are aligned with truth. And if they are not, throw them away, for they will not profit you on this crossing. Ecclesiastes 3:1-6 reads, "For every matter there is an appointed time, even a time for every pursuit or purpose under the heavens, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to throw away." My dear friends, if you are holding on to any traditions that derive from men and not from Elohim, consider this your time, your season to throw away. It may not be the easiest thing to do, but it will be one of the best things you have ever done. And here's what's next in the series. Today's podcast we completed Holiness, Traditions, and Truth. And tomorrow's podcast is Eternal Security, the Truth, Part 1. Now, if you are a member and have questions, please click the Q&A box underneath the video player. Likewise, if you have comments you want to share with the group, please share those in the comment box located beneath the Q&A box. Now, if you're not a member, you have questions about today's podcast, feel free to contact us via our website at www.pinnacleofholiness.com and use the form on our contact page, and we will respond to you as soon as we can. And thank you for being with us today. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Remember to tune in with us every Monday through Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern. And if you haven't already, visit us at www.pinnacleofholiness.com and make sure you sign up to join the quest for holiness, perfection, and everlasting life 2022.